Welcome everyone to the 37th episode in our space shooter DevVenture. So at the end of our last session, we ran into an error, and rather than trying to fix it then and there, or to fix it off screen and come back with a solution, I decided to pause everything and resume it now in the live stream so you guys can benefit from the lesson learned. I made a mistake, I learned from that mistake, and you guys learn as well. So plus the whole point of this live stream session is to only work on this game in this session, so you guys can get a view of the whole process of how a game actually gets made, rather than just show you the highlight reel, or to mention, oh, I did these things, but I don't go into detail. Then it's not a true DevVenture, with me. Then it's more like a dev report by me. So coming back to this, if I go into the testing seek behavior scene and I run it, I expect everything to work as it should. So if I tell it to go to waypoint 1, for example, off it goes, right? And then if I tell it to go to waypoint 6, off it goes. But if I press spacebar, the last time we checked, it threw an error and the whole thing crashed. All right, so let's try that. Let's try going back towards waypoint 1. Once it's aiming to waypoint 1, then we can press spacebar and we get that same error. Perfect, reproducible. So let's find out what it's talking about. Invalid assignment of property or key shooter type with value of type string on a base object of type area 3D in behavior bolt.gd. Okay, so let's see if I go down, what is it trying to say? Open that up. In the shoot script of behavior gun NPC, which we are in, it's saying invalid assignment of property or key shooter type with a value of type string. Okay, so let's try and solve this without going to DeepSeek. Let's see if we can do that. So we don't need firing range, we don't need test flight, we just need the most relevant scenes to us right now. So that's these ones plus plasma bolt. So let's do this one in scenes, components, general components, plasma bolt.scene. All right. And in plasma bolt, you can see that plasma bolt itself is of type area 3D. Okay. And in behavior gun NPC, we are saying plasma bolt, which is bolt here, plasma bolt to instantiate, right? So plasma bolt should be an area 3D node. All right. The root node is an area 3D, and that's what we expect. And so the error is talking about an area 3D node, which is correct. All right. But it does have this script, behavior bolt, right? So if we go into behavior bolt, you can see that it extends area 3D, but it doesn't have a type. It doesn't have a type. It's got a shooter type, string, an empty string, but it doesn't instantiate that string anywhere. Does it? Let's see. Shooter type, take damage, shooter type, shooter ID, and damage. Oh no, so okay, so it should be an empty string. Remember, the shooter type is only meant to show who is shooting this particular bolt, right? The bolt instance has a string talking about who shot it, right? So if a pirate fired that plasma bolt, then that exact plasma bolt will say type enemy ship or whatever, right? And that's just not working. So if I go in here, it says enemy ship dot get class assignment of property or key shooter type with a value of type string on a base object of type area 3D behavior bolt. Okay, well, for the sake of saving time and just to make things easier, I'm going to copy this error and just take it to DeepSeek and see what DeepSeek can tell us from the last time, you know? So I did your suggested actions. Wait, we didn't do all the suggested actions because it's saying if the above doesn't work, try this simpler approach using the nodes script directly. Shot cooldown timeout.connect in the ready function of which script? Oh, here. In the ready function of the heavy gun NPC. Okay, so let's do that. Let's copy this and take it to the heavy gun NPC and go up towards the ready function and just replace that with this. So we'll save this and stop and run it again. Okay, so let's try that. Run this. Okay, so copy all of that, paste it in here. Here is the code for behavior gun npc.gd. I tried both implementations as you suggested, but it still isn't working. Here is the error message I'm getting. What can you tell me? Come on. The issue is with the plasma bolt scene. The error shows that the plasma bolt instance, which is an area 3D with behavior bolt GD, doesn't have shooter type. It doesn't have a shooter type property, or it's not properly defined. The error indicates that bolt.shooterType is assigned the enemy ship.get class is failing because either the shooter type property doesn't exist on the plasma bolt, or it exists but has the wrong type or access permissions. Let's debug the plasma bolt. What I need to know? I need the plasma bolt scene structure and the behavior bolt GD script, as expected. Okay, let's do that. Let's give him, or let's give it. Let's not personify an AI. Let's give it all the things it's asking for, right? So let's say open this with the file manager. Okay, then we'll open up plasmabolt.scene. Here we go. So I'll copy everything here and then paste that over in DeepSeek again. Put it inside the parentheses. Okay, and here is behavior bolt.gd. Here it is. Copy all that and paste it in there. Hopefully this helps you figure out what the cause of the problem is. Perfect, now I can see the issue. Looking at the behavior bolt GD script, the property is named shooter type with an underscore. But your gun script is trying to set shooter type with a lowercase t. Oh, that's a subtle little monster, isn't it? Okay. Here we go. Shooter type. Uppercase T. Oh, I hate it when that happens. It's the worst. Okay. The fix updated in behavior gun NPC to use the correct property names. Key changes changed to an uppercase T. Added the optional color setting to make enemy bolts red for visual distinction. Okay. In the shoot script, set the color. We'll just copy this into Godot engine. In the shoot function, just put that there. Give it a nice big save. Okay. I just want to check something. You mentioned changing the color of the bolt. Will this work with the current implementation of behavior bolt.gd? The last time I tried setting the color from code, it didn't work. Please analyze the code and make sure it will work. If not, please suggest a way to make it work. Looking at the behavior bolt GD code, the color setting should work, but there's a potential timing issue. Let me analyze. In behavior bolt GD, mesh material albedo color RGBA, bolt light.light color RGBA. The method looks correct, but mesh material is set in ready. Potential issues. Timing. If set bolt color is called before ready, then mesh material will be null. Material instance get surface override material 0 might return a reference, not a unique instance. Improved implementation. Here's a more robust approach for behavior gun npc.gd. An even safer approach, if you want to be absolutely sure, modify behavior bolt to handle color setting more robustly. That sounds better. Set bolt color safe. Add this function, and then in behavior gun npc, call set color safe instead. Okay, let's do this one. So we'll copy this and paste it where it's supposed to go. So in behavior bolt, we make another function here. Boom. And then save. Okay. And then in behavior gun NPC, we just have to copy the shoot function and replace it with this one. All right. So let's try this. Let's see if that works. It's shooting, but it's still blue. It's still blue. Okay. So that seems to be working. Halfway, anyway. Let me just go back to the script and see. We are setting the color. Set color safe to be red. Has method, call deferred, set color. None of these are working. The first approach with call deferred first. Try the first approach with call deferred first. It's simpler and should handle the timing issue. If the color still doesn't work, then implement the safer approach with the modified behavior bolt. The shooting mechanics should work regardless of the color, so you can test the core functionality now. Yes, the shooting mechanics work as expected. The enemy ship fires bolts continuously until the waypoint is destroyed, and then it moves to another waypoint. In the test, that was waypoint 7 or the 8th waypoint. Is it waypoint 7? No, it was waypoint 8. The color is still cyan. The color is still cyan though. Let's try the deferred call first, shall we? We'll just copy this and not use set color safe. Invalid assignment of property or key albedo color with a value of type color on a base object of a null instance. mesh material dot albedo color is color 1111. We'll just set it to default of white in the ready function so that there is an actual albedo color. And then in the set bold color, we can just, and then we'll just do this here as well. To be 111. Okay, now let's try that again. Okay, so that's clearly not working. The mesh albedo color is not defined. Mesh material. So this is failing already. Okay. I tried the safer implementation first, and that didn't do anything. Then I tried the initial suggestion, and I got this error message. Let's fix this, because I do want to change the bold color through code later in the game. And I would prefer to fix it now so I don't forget about it. Come on. Come on. What's going on? Try reloading the page. The error message shows that mesh material is null in the ready function of behavior bolt GD. This means the material isn't being properly retrieved. In behavior bolt GD, this line is failing. The material is null because the mesh might not have a material assigned yet, or there is no surface override material at index 0. Update behavior bolt GD script to handle the material properly. Don't use onReady for material, initialize it properly. Mesh material, standard material, 3D, and then you call initializing material. So you fix this. Okay, fine, let's do that. Behavior bolt, one plasma body entered. So it wants me to replace the entire script. Okay. Alright, let's give it another try. Seemed fine. And now it's shooting. But again, still, it's not changing the color properly. Okay. Handles the missing material, uses export variables. Default colors can be set in the inspector, and then it's got safe material access, checks if the material exists before using it. After applying this fix to behavior bolt, the color setting should work properly in your gun script. That's just the one thing that I really don't like about DeepSeek when it replaces all my code, is that it messes up all my alignment. That's okay, we'll fix that later. I just want to make sure that DeepSeek can fix this for me. Okay, so let's do the shooting mechanic is working again, but the color is not changing. The issue is likely that the set bolt color method is being called, but the material changes aren't taking effect. Let's add some debug prints to see what's happening. First, let's update the set bolt color method in behavior bolt with debug prints. Yeah, this is probably the best way to go about it. We'll copy that and then paste it into set bolt color, which is this guy. We'll paste it there. Okay. Also update the gun script. So update gun behavior to ensure the color is being set. So then we'll do that. And we'll go to behavior gun NPC in the shoot function, and we'll just replace this script. Alright. Common issues to check. Material sharing. The material might be shared across all bolts. Try this in initialize material. Always create a unique material for each bolt. That's a smart thing. In the bolt behavior, initialize material, replace. Okay. And then what's the last thing? Make sure the material has the right properties. Initialize material. And then run the test. If setBolt color is being called, we should see it with debug prints. And if the material exists and is being modified, what the actual color values are, and if there are any errors in the color setting process. The debug output will pinpoint exactly where the color setting is failing. So let's try that. Okay, so we are in testing seek behavior. Let's give it a try. Boom. Copy all the output and paste it here. I've made the changes and I have run the scene. Here is the output from the test. What can you see? Looking at the debug output, I can see exactly what's happening. The color setting is working perfectly in code, the material is being created, and the colors are being set correctly. The issue is that the material isn't being applied to the mesh visually. So the problem, the debug shows that all 4 of these steps are working, but the bolts still appear blue because the material changes aren't visible. The root cause, the issue is likely that the material properties aren't configured correctly for the changes to be visible. The material needs specific flags set to show the color changes. So update the initialize material function in behavior bolt like this. Alternatively, check the original material. The problem might be that the original material in the scene has properties that override our changes. So let's also check what the original material looks like and add this debugs to see the original material properties in the initialized material. So we copy this one, go to initialize material in behavior bolt, just replace this one like so. All right. And then at the top here, we just paste in that additional step. Did I say step? I meant step. We'll just copy this over and paste it in here. That first step. We'll save it and we'll remove the indent over there. All right. So that seems fine. Let's give it a test run. See what goes on. Shall we? So far, so good. So far, so good, but also not good. We've got some output anyway. The key fix is flags transparent is true and flags unshaded is true in the material. This should make the color changes visible. I've done as you suggested, but the bolts are still cyan. Here is the output. Now I can see the issue. The debug output reveals that the material is being created and the colors are being set correctly, but there's a critical problem. The material isn't being properly applied to the mesh, and I was suspecting this might be the case. You know, in my intuition, you know, in my gut, I had a gut feeling that this was the problem. I just didn't vocalize it. I should have, but I didn't. Yeah, I thought that it might be doing all these things and not actually applying to the mesh, you know. So the root cause is that the issue is that we are checking the original material properties but not actually using our new material on the mesh. The bolt mesh.mesh.surfaceGetMaterial0 call is getting the material from the mesh resource and not setting our new material to the mesh instance. So the fix: update the initialize material function to properly apply the material to the mesh instance. All of this just to change the color of a bolt. Okay, let's just take some time and actually go through this so that we don't just copy code blindly. I don't believe in using AI to generate code and then just copy paste it without actually seeing what it's actually trying to do. And if it's doing something wrong and you know that it's doing something wrong, challenge it and say, no, this is wrong. So let's do that. Let's go through this. Initialize material, print original material properties are, and then variable original material is the bolt mesh.mesh.get surface material 0. Right? So get the actual material from the surface of the mesh and assign it to this original material. And then if there is an original material, so if it's not null, then print this as well. So original material properties, new line, original albedo color is original albedo color. And then what is original albedo color? I don't see any original albedo color variable over here. Unless I've defined it in here somewhere before that. But I don't think so. Okay. Let's see if Godot can tell me whether original albedo color is a defined variable. Original albedo color is not declared in the current scope. That's what I thought. Let's just say to DeepSeek, your variable original albedo color doesn't appear to be defined anyway. Please fix this, as it will cause errors in Godot. original material dot albedo color. All right, so original material dot albedo color, original material dot emission. That's better. Why do I keep minimizing this window? Right. So let's go through the code again. So it's just doing some print messages here on top. Luckily, we managed to pick up this error and fix it. Create a unique material for this bolt instance. Mesh material is a standard material 3D.new. If there's an original material, so if it's not null, right, then change the mesh material's albedo color, emission, set emission enabled to true, or maybe no, actually set it to the emission enabled of the original material. So basically we're just copying all of the data from the original material into this new material that we've defined. All right, that's all we're doing here. We're just taking, yeah, that's literally, it's literally there in the comment. I didn't read the comment, but that's exactly what it said, right? We're basically just copying the properties from the original material, if the original material exists, and we're putting it into this new mesh material, all right? And then this is the critical step. We actually set the material to the mesh instance and not the mesh resource. Oh, sorry about that. So the bolt mesh dot material override is mesh material, so the one that we copied everything into. And then mesh material dot albedo color is this new color, and mesh material dot emission is this new color here. And then we set the light color. The key change, the critical fix is using bolt mesh dot material override is assigned this new mesh material instead of doing it this way. Why does this work? The material override applies to the mesh instance and overrides all materials. Set surface override material only works if the mesh has multiple surfaces. The cylinder mesh might only have one surface, but the material override is more reliable. And then we also set the bolt color. Make sure set bolt color also uses the material override. So let's change set bolt color. Copy this over into Godot Engine over there. Just paste that there, save everything. And like all the other scripts, let's make the functions separate by 3 lines, just so that it's clean, that there's a clear distinction between each function, so that I know where one starts and the next begins, or where one ends and the next begins. Right? So in the test now, let's give it a run, make sure everything works. And we don't have flags transparent is an invalid access on a base object of standard material 3D. All right. Let's copy the error. Here is the code for behavior bolt.gd as I have it now. I'm getting this error message. Let's fix this with fewer steps, please. No, let's just say let's fix this. The error is because flags, transparent, and some other properties don't exist in standard material 3D. These are properties of base material 3D, but they are accessed differently in Godot 4. The fixed initialize material function. The key changes. Removed invalid properties like flags transparent, which doesn't exist in Godot 4's standard material 3D. Use the correct property transparency, which is the correct property name, and added essential properties like flags, unshaded, emission enabled, and emission energy multiplier for a proper glow effect. Alternative, simpler approach. If you're still having issues, you can simplify it by just creating a new material with the basic properties needed. The simpler approach should work reliably and avoid any property name conflicts. Let's try this one first, and then, as suggested, we can always change things to the simpler implementation. Alright, so initialize material is this one. Let's give it a test run. Okay, so it's not dying on us, but it's also not working. I tried the first suggestion, and the color isn't changing. Here's the output. Then I tried your simpler implementation, and this is the output. We're running out of time here, guys. The live stream's almost over. I can see the issue now. You've said that 5 times already. The debug output shows that the material is being created and the colors are being set correctly in code, but the visual appearance isn't changing. This suggests the problem is with material properties not being configured properly for the changes to be visible. The core problem, the material is being created with red colors, but the bolts still appear cyan because the material might not have the right shader settings. The emission might not be strong enough to override the base color, or that there might be lighting or shading interfering. Let's try a more aggressive material configuration. Update your initialize material function as follows. Alternatively, check if the material is actually applied. Let's add a debug to verify the material is actually on the mesh. And if this still doesn't work, if the bolts are still cyan after this, the issue might be that the mesh has a material in the scene that's overriding our changes. There's a shader or material resource attached to the mesh that we can't override. Or the problem is in the original Plasma Bolt scene file. You know what? Let's actually go to Plasma Bolt and make sure that there isn't this resource that it's talking about. So maybe it does have a resource attached to it. It doesn't seem to have one. If I go into resources, assets, resources, targets, and level configs, there's no resource for plasma bolts. So no. Okay. Fine. As a final test, you can try creating so we covered the first two, that either the mesh has a material in the scene that's overwriting our changes, which it does have a material in the scene, or that there's a shader or material resource attached to the mesh that we can't override, or the problem is in the original plasma bolt scene file. As a final test, you can try creating a completely new, simple material without any complex properties. If even this doesn't work, the issue is likely in the scene file itself, and we might need to modify the plasma vault scene directly to remove any existing material assignments. Try the aggressive configuration first, and let me know what happens. Okay, so this will probably be the last thing I do for this live stream, because we'll probably run out of time by the end of this, but we'll give it a try. The final fix attempt. We'll copy all of this into our scene, our script, behavior bolt, initialize material, copy everything, paste it, and save. Okay. Then we need to add the debug statements. Add the debug statements. So we copy this part after bolt material override mesh material. Don't minimize this one, just the Godot engine one. So we print it over here. We'll put this in here. All right. Still blue. It's still blue. But I saw an error message. Let's go up and show you. There was an error. Here we go. Error. Material override failed. On applied material, the object is null. The object is null. The object is null. So it's doing that every time it fires the thing. That's what's causing the problem. Okay, good. We've got somewhere. I tested the new implementation. Here is the output. And here is behavior bolt.gd. We are in behavior bolt, right? Yes. As you can see, the material is not being applied due to some error. The debug shows material override failed, applied material object null. This means bolt mesh get surface material 0 is returning null, which indicates that the bolt mesh node doesn't have any surfaces, or that the mesh setup is different. Excuse me. is different than expected. So the root problem, the issue is that we are trying to access surface 0. But the mesh might not have surfaces in the way we expect. In Godot 4, get surface override material only works if the mesh has surfaces, but material override should work regardless. So let's fix material application. Let's fix the material application by using the correct method and adding better error checking. So again, we come back to the initialize material function. And then the alternative is to use a direct material assignment. If the above still doesn't work, let's try assigning the material directly to the mesh resource. Using bolt mesh.material override instead of surface methods. Change 2, better debugging to see what's actually happening with the mesh. Change 3, alternative approach with direct mesh surface assignment. What to look for? The debug output should now show whether the bolt mesh node exists, whether it has a mesh resource, what the current material override is, which method successfully applies the material. Try the first approach with the improved debugging first and let me know what the new debug output shows. This will tell us exactly why the material isn't being applied. So let's do that. We'll copy this over and paste it over here in the initialize material function. All right, like so. Save it. Give it a test run. Okay, so it's saying success. The material override property is properly applied to the bolt mesh. Now we'll copy it. We'll paste it into DeepSeek. Here is the output. It's saying success. But the bolt color is still cyan. After trying the alternative approach, I get the following output. Okay, so now where's this alternative approach? Direct material assignment, we just do this instead, right? So copy that and paste it in here with behavior bolt, initialize material, collapse, select the whole thing. Paste, save. See, we're setting the color here directly now, it seems. And then we test this. That's better. There we go. Awesome. This time, the bolt color actually changes to red. I think we are done here now, right? Seriously? Okay. It wants us to start a new chat. Well, here's the thing, right? We fixed the error. So we can start a new chat, no problem. But it's working. So I'm happy with that. And by the way, guys, in the next live stream, I'm going to try and take a break from actually working in Godot Engine. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to shift from DeepSeek into Perplexity. And I'll explain why in the next live stream as I do it. But I think you kind of guess why, right? DeepSeek's chats run out, and then you have to start a new one. And providing the right context to that new chat takes up a large chunk of the chat. And so you get this whole thing, right? And as your project gets bigger, adding more context becomes more. And so then you have less chat available and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a space in Perplexity. And that will keep a global context in the space, so that when I start new chats, it has a rough idea of what the whole game is about. So we don't have to tell it everything from scratch. Okay, so I'm going to close things off here, and I'll make a shout out to our junior DevVenturer, Cubes. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it very much. And to the rest of you, thank you for your time and your attention. I appreciate it. And I'll see you all in the next live stream.